Once upon a dusty sunrise, in the crooked little village of Dustyvale, lived a man named Hakim the Clever, though some said clever was just a polite word for troublemaker. He was always broke, always smiling, and always one idea away from disaster. His wife, Zaina, was the opposite, calm, smart, and tired of hearing the same sentence every morning. "Don't worry, my moonlight. Today, I'll make us rich." "You said that yesterday, Hakim." "And today I'll do it better." That morning, Hakim marched to Dustyvale Market, leading his poor gray donkey, the kind of donkey that looked tired just from standing still. In his pocket, a few gold coins. In his mind, a terrible plan that made him grin like a thief at a jewelry shop. He took a piece of bread, stuffed the coins inside, and fed it to the donkey. Then he shouted, "People of Dustyvale, my donkey is blessed. Every time he brays, gold falls from his mouth." Clink, a coin dropped. The crowd gasped. A woman dropped her onions. A man screamed, "By the beard of my uncle, it's a miracle donkey!" And through the crowd pushed Karim, the richest and most gullible merchant in the whole village. He wiped sweat from his forehead, adjusted his orange vest, and said, "I'll buy him. Name your price." "Oh, Karim, how could I sell such a family member? He's like a son to me." Of course, 5 seconds later, Hakim sold his son for a bag of gold heavy enough to make the donkey jealous. That night, Karim put the donkey in his yard, placed a bucket under its mouth, and whispered, "All right, my golden boy, make Papa rich." Something fell. Karim's eyes widened. He reached for the bucket, then froze. The only thing golden was the smell. By morning, the whole village heard the truth, and Karim chased Hakim all the way to the hills, shouting words not found in any holy book. But Hakim was already gone, laughing with Zaina, his pockets jingling and his conscience completely empty. And that was the first miracle of Hakim the Clever, the man who could sell sand in the desert and make everyone thank him for it. The next morning, Dustyvale was louder than a wedding. Karim's gold-pooping donkey had produced plenty of smell, but not a single coin. He stormed through the village, shouting, "Everyone, come with me! I've been fooled!" By the time he reached Hakim's house, half the town followed. Men, women, and one confused chicken. Karim yelled, "Zaina! Tell your husband to come out before I hang him on his own lies!" Layla, clutching her nose, added, "My house still smells like golden disaster." But Zaina opened the door calmly, sipping her morning tea. "Oh my, so many guests and not one gift? How rude." The crowd froze. Zaina smiled. "Please, sit down before the heat melts your anger. I'll bring him." Karim scoffed. "How? He's probably hiding underground." Zaina winked. "Underground, in a tree, doesn't matter. I have my best employee." She whistled. A big brown dog trotted out, tail wagging proudly. "Rafi," she said sweetly, "bring your master home. Again." The villagers stared. The dog barked once and ran off down the dusty road. Minutes later, they heard panting and barking, and there was Hakim, being dragged by the leash, his sandal flying off. "Rafi! Stop! I surrender!" he shouted. Zaina folded her arms. "You should train yourself to stay put as well as that dog does." The villagers burst out laughing despite their anger. Salim, Dustyvale's tall, clumsy mailman, scratched his head. "By the wind, that dog actually found him. My wife can't even find her keys." Hakim saw his chance. "For you, Salim, special price. 200 coins. This dog can find anyone, anywhere." The crowd gasped. Salim's jaw dropped. 200? Done. He handed over the coins and walked off proudly with his new miracle dog. It was another normal morning in Dusty Vale, which meant Hakim was already up to something unusual. Inside his little clay house, he sat polishing a shiny knife while Zaina kneaded dough at the table. She didn't even look up. "Every time you touch something sharp, I feel a warning from the universe," she said. Hakim grinned. "This, my clever wife, is not just a knife. It's a magic knife, and today we'll test it." Zaina raised an eyebrow. "Test it on who? Please tell me it's not the neighbor's goat again." Hakim leaned closer like a salesman at work. "Look, it's a fake knife, dull as a butter spoon. When I stab you, you'll pretend to die. Then I'll play my new wooden flute and bring you back to life." Zaina sighed. "I'll do it, if you promise to do laundry." 1 week, he said. 2 months. "Done," he muttered. "You're more dangerous than the knife." He gave her a small pouch of fake red syrup for the act. She looked unimpressed. Cherry flavor? How thoughtful. Then Zaina stood in the center of the room. Hakim raised the fake knife high. "People of Dusty Vale," he announced, to an audience of 3 curious goats peeking through the door. "Prepare to witness life, death, and laundry." He poked her gently. Zaina gasped, spun dramatically, and collapsed on the floor, syrup splashing everywhere. Right at that moment, 3 villagers barged in. Karim, Layla, and Rashid, the local butcher. They froze. Layla screamed, "He's killed his wife!" Karim shouted, "We told you he'd go too far!" And Rashid just whispered, "Poor woman. I could have used her help plucking chickens." Hakim's eyes widened. Then he grabbed his little wooden flute and blew into it. Squeak! It sounded like a confused pigeon. Still, he waved his hand dramatically. "Rise, my beloved! Rise again!" Zaina slowly sat up, wiping the syrup off her dress. "If heaven looks like this house, I'd rather stay dead," she said flatly. The villagers gasped. "She's alive!" Layla cried. Karim stumbled backward. Rashid dropped his cleaver and clapped like he'd seen a miracle. Rashid rushed forward. "Can that flute bring back anything? Like, say, my favorite rooster?" "He fainted last week. Permanently." Hakim smirked. "For 200 coins, this flute can wake the whole barn." Rashid slammed the money into his hand, hugged the flute like a baby, and ran off, yelling, "Wait for me, Clucky!" That night, Dusty Vale heard wild fluting, loud clucking, and a scream that echoed into the hills. By morning, Rashid was covered in feathers and regret. He stumbled past Zaina and muttered, "It didn't work." Zaina didn't even look up from her tea. "Try the knife next time," she said. "Maybe it'll kill your bad ideas, too." By now, Hakim's name was whispered all across Dusty Vale, half in fear, half in disbelief. "First the donkey poops gold, then the knife wakes the dead," said one villager. "What's next?" asked another. Zaina sighed, stirring her tea. "Next? Probably a disaster with feathers." Sure enough, that very afternoon, Hakim came home with a red rooster tucked under his arm. Zaina blinked. "Oh, great. What's this one's superpower? Crowing on command?" Hakim grinned like a man who'd just invented stupidity again. "No, my wise wife. This rooster finds buried treasure." She nearly dropped her cup. "Hakim, you can't even find your own socks." "Ah, but he can," Hakim winked. He whispered to the rooster, "You're my new business partner. Don't mess this up." The next morning, Dusty Vale's market was packed. Hakim stood proudly on a wooden crate, rooster in one hand, shovel in the other. "Ladies and gentlemen," he shouted, "this bird can sniff out gold. Watch closely." The crowd gasped. Even Yusuf, the pot seller, known for being cheap enough to reuse his tea bags, pushed forward. Zaina stood behind the stalls, arms crossed, hiding a pouch of coins in her apron. Hakim bent down, pretending to study the ground, and whispered to Zaina, "Now!" She tossed a few coins into the dirt when no one was looking. The rooster began to peck. Once, twice. Clink! The villagers gasped. A shiny gold coin popped out. "Behold!" Hakim cried. "The golden finder!" Someone fainted. Yusuf shouted, "That chicken just found more treasure than my cousin ever did mining!" Within minutes, chaos exploded. Everyone ran home, grabbed shovels, and started digging their yards like mad. One man dug so deep he found his neighbor's socks. Another found his wife's missing shoe. And one very old lady yelled, "I found a potato! It's mine now!" Zaina sat on their doorstep, watching the madness. She sipped tea, shaking her head. Dusty Vale has officially... Then Yusuf came running back, out of breath, clutching a pouch of coins. "How much for the rooster?" he panted. Hakim smiled, like a cat that just found the cream. "For you, my friend, only 300 coins. Limited edition, Yusuf. Handed over the gold faster than a chicken on fire." That night, Zaina was woken up by distant clucking, yelling, and a crash. The next morning, Yusuf's wife stormed through the market, covered in mud. "My husband dug up the whole yard looking for gold!" The only thing he found was the rooster's droppings. Zaina nearly choked on her laughter. She turned to Hakim and said, "Well, at least this one really did poop something." By now, the people of Dusty Vale were either terrified of Hakim's miracles or secretly hoping to buy the next one. Everywhere he went, someone whispered, "Did you hear? His donkey pooped gold." No, his cow gave golden milk." "My cousin bought a rooster that finds treasure. It found his wife's missing slipper." Zaina just rolled her eyes. At this point, even his lies need a vacation. One afternoon, she found Hakim crouched beside a bowl of water, whispering. "Hakim," she said slowly, "please tell me you're not giving sermons to soup." He held up the bowl proudly. Inside, a single fish blinked lazily. "Not soup, my clever wife. This fish talks." Zaina stared, stone-faced. "Oh, wonderful. Maybe it can tell me why I married you." Hakim wagged a finger. "You laugh now, but soon the village will pay just to hear its wisdom." He winked. "Its name is Professor Bubbles." Zaina sighed. "Perfect. A talking fish and a lying husband. What's next? A dancing potato?" The next morning, Hakim carried the bowl to the market, humming like a man with a secret. He stood on a crate and shouted, "Step closer, good people! Meet the talking fish of Dusty Vale, the only fish that speaks truth, not scales." The villagers laughed, thinking it was another one of his shows. But then Hakim reached into his pocket, gave the hidden whistle a gentle squeeze. Squeak! The crowd gasped. "It spoke!" cried someone. Hakim nodded proudly. "You heard it. It just said, 'Good morning, my lovely audience.'" He squeezed the whistle again. Squeak! "It says it wants to bless you with wisdom." Among the crowd was Shoddy, the town carpenter. Tall, beard full of sawdust, and always halfway between curious and confused. He stepped forward. "Does it really talk?" "Of course," Hakim said. "It knows things even humans don't." He leaned close to the bowl. "Tell him something, Professor." Squeak! Hakim gasped. "He says your hammer is under your bed." Shoddy blinked. "How did it know?" Zaina, watching from the back, nearly fell off her chair, laughing. "Because you lose it every day, genius!" Before long, the villagers surrounded Hakim, throwing coins and begging to ask the fish questions. "Will my crops grow?" Squeak! "Will my mother-in-law visit again?" Squeak! It said no. Thank heavens! Dusty Vale was in hysterics. Even the mayor's wife leaned in to ask, "Does my husband love me?" The fish squeaked twice. She frowned. "Twice means what?" Zaina shouted from the back, "It means that's complicated!" By sunset, Hakim was counting gold coins while the fish lazily blew bubbles in its bowl. Shadi stepped forward nervously. "How much for the fish?" Hakim grinned. "For you, my friend? Just 200 coins, and that's with the voice included." Shadi grabbed it and ran home.
That night, his wife found him sitting cross-legged, staring at the bowl. He whispered, "Talk to me, Professor. Say anything." Silence. Then a tiny blub. He gasped. "It's whispering secrets." Zaina, hearing the story the next day, laughed so hard she cried. She told Hakim, "You're not selling miracles, you're selling madness." Hakim smirked. Madness pays well. It was late at night in Dusty Vale. The moon glowed above like a nosy neighbor watching drama unfold. But this wasn't an ordinary night. This was the night the villagers finally lost their patience with Hakim.
"He sold me a flying carpet that only flies when I throw it.
And my magic rooster just eats and stares at me. Let's tie him up and toss him into the sea before he sells the water next." They caught Hakim before he could even finish dinner, tied him inside a huge sack, and dragged him toward the dark riverside. Wait! At least let me finish my bread. It's my last supper." When they reached the sea, the water shimmered cold under the moonlight, but the villagers were tired. "We'll throw him in after a short nap." They sat under a tree, snoring like a band of angry bears. Moments later, a young shepherd named Rami passed by with his sheep, humming a tune. He stopped when he saw a giant sack moving by itself. What in Dusty Vale? Is that thing alive? He poked it with his stick. The sack groaned. "Hey! You there! Save me!" Rami jumped back. "Who's in there? A ghost?" No, not a ghost. A man cursed with too much love." Rami blinked, completely lost. "What do you mean?" "The villagers locked me up because I refused to marry the chief's daughter. She's rich, she's beautiful, but my heart already belongs to another. They said if I won't marry her, they'll toss me in the sea." "By the goats! They'd kill you? For love?" "Indeed. But maybe you, brave shepherd, could take my place. The chief's daughter is still waiting. You'll live in a palace, wear golden shoes, eat grapes all day." Rami's eyes sparkled like two lanterns. "A palace? Grapes? Golden shoes? That's destiny." "Yes, destiny. Quickly, take my place before they return. You'll thank me later." And before poor Rami could count to 3, Hakim had tied him neatly inside the sack, patted it, and rolled it back toward the water. "May your love story have a happy ending, or at least a splash." When the villagers woke up and saw the sack floating in the moonlight, they cheered. "Good riddance. Dusty Vale is finally free of Hakim." Meanwhile, Hakim strolled into the night, dusting off his vest. Ah, what a beautiful night to fall out of love and into freedom. By sunrise, the whole village of Dusty Vale smelled like panic, seaweed, and bad decisions. Someone yelled from the hill, "He's back! The man we threw in the sea is walking home!" Everyone rushed outside, hair messy, eyes wide, and hearts full of regret. Down the road came Hakim, walking proudly, dripping a little seawater, a huge sack of gold on his shoulder, and a herd of fat sheep following him like bodyguards. His grin stretched wider than the horizon. "He's alive. And rich. The sea gave him wealth. Hakim stopped in the middle of the dusty road, adjusted his vest, and flicked his wet hair like a hero in a bad romance movie. "My friends! When you threw me into the sea last night, I didn't drown. I was rescued. By a mermaid." The villagers all screamed at once. "A mermaid? You mean with a fishtail and everything?" "Oh yes. She had shiny hair, a voice like honey, and she smelled way better than Kareem's donkey." Kareem, standing in the crowd, covered his nose. "Hey, my donkey's hygiene is personal business." "Then tell your donkey to start using sea salt shampoo."
The mermaid took me to her underwater palace, walls made of pearls, fish waiting tables, and she gave me these coins and sheep as a gift.
"She gave you sheep? In the sea?"
"Yes, waterproof sheep."
Don't question magic. Question your life choices. The villagers' eyes bulged with greed and stupidity, Dusty Vale's favorite combination. Dropping his voice to a whisper, serious tone, "But listen closely. She told me something else." Everyone leaned in. "She said if I had been thrown deeper, her older sister would have given me even more gold. And maybe a few camels that can swim." The next morning, Dusty Vale buzzed with excitement and stupidity. Every villager thought they'd become millionaires by lunchtime. Kareem, "The older mermaid sister will make me a king." Salem, "I'm bringing a bigger sack for all the gold." Fareed, "2 sacks for me. One for me, one for my donkey." And before Hakim could even blink, the entire village was marching toward the Sea of Second Chances. Some paddled boats, some leapt from cliffs like flying potatoes. Others simply ran, yelling, straight into the waves. Omar, "Wait for me, rich mermaid sister! I'm single and desperate!" The sea swallowed them all. Plop, plop, plop. Then silence. No singing, no gold. Just one lonely shoe floating back to shore. Days passed. The sea stayed quiet. Dusty Vale stayed empty. Only Hakim and Zaina remained, the last 2 souls in a village that once believed every lie he told. At sunset, they sat outside their quiet home. The streets were still, the market silent. Only the sea whispered far away, almost laughing. Zaina, "So, husband, what's next? A flying cow? A talking goat?" Hakim, "No, my love. I'm retiring. The sea was my final investor." Zaina, "Good. Maybe now Dusty Vale and the sea can finally rest." And so, under the pale moonlight, Dusty Vale was quiet for once. No miracles, no lies, no gold. Just one clever man and his laughing wife. And that's how Hakim the Trickster became the legend of the Sea of Fools, the only man who ever sold waves, words, and wishes, and still came home dry.